I get that in order for a man to be a provider and for him to feel fulfilled in his role, he has goals for what that looks like. Whether it's moving from a three-bedroom house to a six-bedroom house, whether it's from, a decent car to a luxury car, whether it's from a good school to a private school, that man has goals, and that requires him being away from the family. And I also understand that that is a sacrifice that a man has to make. What I'm talking about when it comes to balance, at least for me, the type of man that I would like to be married to, the type of man that I would like to be the father to my future children, is to be available for the types of conversations that Tap said he had with his son. As someone who aspires to be a mother, I absolutely will be standing by my.
A lot of people, instead of making money and reprioritizing life, we reprioritize things. So our creature comforts go up. I had an S class, now I need a Maybach, or I need to buy a 6 bedroom house when I had a 3 bedroom house. And those creature comforts, they're not worth it in the grand scheme of what you trade off for in time. So I don't think the lady's saying you shouldn't work and you should. What'd
Yeah,
you
but
say?
it's not always that. We can't deny the fact that when you have money, there's more opportunity for your kids. There's a standard of living or just they just have more exposure, so to speak. When you have
I mean,
money, there's a lot that comes along with that.
It's a
so
balance
like,
But it's not about a Maybach or like all the finer things in life. It's just about, I guess,
is, but if you look at what we do for the most part, like Coach K gave the example of her dad was a blue collar worker and he worked hard to send them to private school.
mhm.
It wasn't that he was trying to get a bigger house or get a bigger car or get all of these extras
That's what
He
I said.
that
sacrificed.
we
Mhm.
do. The focus was I want to set my kids up better, so I know education is the way.
The way I didn't, like Cap said, yeah.
Yeah. So
That's what I was saying. It's not about the car. It's about the when you that comes with, because what you're saying is he made more money, but now he's able to afford something that certain parents are only able to afford, because not everybody's able to afford a private school.
right, but what Marcus was saying was the fact that a lot of times is the extras. We end up making more money. The focus is not
Oh,
no longer just the school. Now we
gotcha.
want to get the car to go with it.
Like
Now we
one or
want to
the
get
other
the house
kind of
to
thing,
go with
yeah.
it. So
I
every other thing start creeping into, and then it builds that cycle because now I got the car, now I got the house, and I got the private school. So now I got to work more hours to make more money, and now more time is taken away from the family.
gotcha.
Yeah.
So I just want to check in and see if Marcus was done before I jump in. Were you done, Marcus?
uh, yeah, you can go. You can go.
Um, so I wanted to say this because I think what I was saying in terms of balance sounds to me like it may have been misconstrued a little bit, right? I get it. I get that in order for a man to be a provider and for him to feel fulfilled in his role, he has goals for what that looks like. Whether it's moving from a three-bedroom house to a six-bedroom house, whether it's from, a decent car to a luxury car, whether it's from a good school to a private school, that man has goals, and that requires him being away from the family. And I also understand that that is a sacrifice that a man has to make. What I'm talking about when it comes to balance, at least for me, the type of man that I would like to be married to, the type of man that I would like to be the father to my future children, is to be available for the types of conversations that Tap said he had with his son. As someone who aspires to be a mother, I absolutely will be standing by my partner and saying, listen, your father is going to put in. Shit, you might want to mute. Um, but I understand that it takes me as a woman who aspires to be a mother to have those conversations with children, saying your father is making these sacrifices for the greater good. However, if I'm the only one having those conversations, we both, as a couple, as a unit, risk it falling on deaf ears if you were not also at least available sometimes to also have that conversation, where it doesn't look like I'm covering for you, but we look like a united front that are each willing to make our own separate sacrifices for the greater good. The reason I say that is there are a multitude of men that I've heard online and offline talk about how that is the sole responsibility of the woman to have that conversation. Those children are now dividing and conquering, where mom looks like she's covering for dad because dad is not showing up at all. Where, you know, maybe Monday to Friday, where you're pulling in those hours and we're factoring in travel time and other people having other activities and busy life, that on the weekend or over the course of the week, you can't sacrifice 4 hours in total, right? Like when we're having those conversations, if we're getting too busy with life that we're not available to have those conversations, to me, that's where balance is lacking. Where you're there in physical, but you're not there to impart anything outside of physically being there sometimes, right? To me, those few moments, those 4 hours across the course of a week, because it doesn't make sense to have it each and every single day, 4 hours across an entire 7 day period, if you're not available to be there, to be present, to be active, this doesn't make sense. And I think that mentality is what's really pushing women to file for divorce, that if I'm going to really do this on my own, I might as well actually do it on my own, right? And I think that's not the conversation that we have often enough, that it's not, as much as women are incentivized to be financially provided for, because we are emotional human beings, right? We're not irrational, we're emotional, we're guided by our emotions. That if we don't feel supported in the sacrifices that we are making to support you in the sacrifices that you're making, that I might as well just do this alone, because that seems easier. There's less of a burden on me to just take this on all by myself and ask you to write checks on a regular basis than to continue to sacrifice with no appreciation, no support, right? That when I'm talking about balance, that's what I'm talking about, is when you are there, when you are available, that as a man you make that count, that you're not just using that time to strictly rest, that you're making it count towards your family. And so that's what I was getting at when I come to balance, not giving more than what you're capable of or sacrificing what it is to be that particular kind of man in a relationship, but really making your time count.